Secondary education space, but also firmly established it as an employment and workforce development strategy. So it's my pleasure to announce here for the first time the launch of the CPL Provider Network. This will be a major benefit to current and prospective students. This network will provide them a free one-stop connection to post-secondary institutions where their prior learning experiences can be recognized. So really laying it out there and making sure they know exactly who is and where it's available. This network is also an opportunity for institutions to expand and extend their impact. It allows them to showcase their CPL offerings and improve their visibility on a national scale. CALE will promote public access to the network with high schools, local and regional workforce boards, economic development boards, chambers of commerce, and military affiliated institutions nationwide to really getting the word out as never been done before. Listings on the CPL Provider Network are free for all CALE institutional members. In fact, several of those members helped us develop this list so we could debut it here with nearly 100 early adopters already on board. Proud moment for us. You can access the network's latest listings at CALE.org. And to add your institution, please connect with any of the CALE staff that you meet this week or visit our website to make that happen. An added complement to the network, CALE will be working to implement and expand CPL strategies from the workforce development side of the equation. So I mentioned the 10% of post-secondary institutions that are utilized, and that will grow. But we're now seeing a higher demand from workforce boards and workforce systems. So that's going to help that scale start to really grow. And we're envisioning employers advocacy as well down the road. So I want to be very clear, because when I came to CALE from the workforce background, there was fear that I would turn it into a workforce agency. Well, I think we've proven that that's not the case. So that doesn't mean we're abandoning our post-secondary education space at all. As a matter of fact, it's here to contribute and connect. By fitting these two halves together, we think we can be a lot more proactive about the importance of CPL. And let's face it, businesses, industry just can't find enough workers, or at least what they say, qualified ones. Our colleges and universities don't have enough students. So adult learners are the ultimate renewable resource that can fill both gaps. And again, that's why we're here this week. So in addition to that, that's also why we're expanding CPL opportunities to employers throughout the country. We feel that CPL is the key to solving workforce needs, boost the relevancy and effectiveness of college and corporate training, and can open new avenues to college completion while reducing the cost of education and their benefit programs. That's a lot to come together. That's what I call a win-win for education and employment, and we feel it's badly needed. To realize this potential, we're going to have to look past the prevailing zero-sum framework that pits short-term credentials against degrees. I often laugh when I'm asked that question. What do you prefer, training credentials or degrees? The answer is yes. Powerful partnerships are building in such pathways, and they will power CALE's success and the success in the field as we begin our next half-century of service. One example of a partnership that combines elements of the strategic alignment that I've talked about so far is, for those who've attended the past few conferences, we mentioned a project we call Build Better Careers, which is just a generously funded program through the Truist Foundation. It's up and running in 3 markets, Charlotte, Memphis, and South Florida. And I think I teased Pace University. So with that, we're now going to hear a message from Jeffrey Baptiste, Senior Manager of Learning Development at Verizon, about the impact of Nextel, and in particular, the work of Dr. Nancy Hale and Pace University has had for his company. Video, please.
Hale has had a positive impact here at Verizon with the NACTEL program. NACTEL exemplifies what education and industry can do when they work together for adult learners. This partnership has been successful due to the guidance of Dr. Nancy Hale. NACTEL graduates within Verizon have a wider knowledge
think one of the scarce points that are introduced into our current world is, our ability to connect and interact with one another. Recently, on the flight over, I had to make a few changes because there was a talk that I had that was right in the middle of a flight and I had to change flights and I couldn't talk to a human being. All I wanted to do was just talk to somebody and talk it through. But I spent a lot of time talking to an AI agent to try and get things resolved. And there is this sense of when I want a problem solved, that's strictly just, a problem devoid of my emotions, bring me all the AI you can bring me. But when I want to solve a problem that I'm frustrated, I'm agitated, AI has a reverse effect on me. It amplifies my agitation. And you might have recognized this a while ago. You may have seen there was an incident a number of years ago, just as ChatGPT was out already. And there was a shooting that had occurred, and Vanderbilt University sent a message out to its student population to just say, hey, this happened, we're here for you. This is terrible. This is a tragedy. And then at the end, they put, written with ChatGPT. Now, oh, wow. See, thank you. That's why. Why did you react that way? What was it about that required a human? And I think that's the genesis of what you're getting at, right? Is where is the construction that involves us to be in relation to one another? I'm perfectly fine taking a bunch of crap I've written, throwing into ChatGPT and saying, hey, summarize this and make sense of it. There's no care involved in it. It's a quick temporal relationship, but when it comes to care, when it comes to connection to one another, the exact same experience you just had is what we need to be very sharply focused on when we think about AI in our classrooms. Are we amplifying care? Are we dehumanizing care? Right? How are we engaging in that process? So I'm just emphasizing, I don't know the answer to the question you're asking, but I know the spirit of it, I think, and the need for us to sharpen in on that visceral response that we have when it doesn't feel right and to not ride through it. That's a pause point where you say, what's here, right? This is therapy for humanity, right? Why do you have that sensitive spot there that made you react that way to AI? And I think that's the key to a healthy relationship with AI. I'm going to start doing an AI human therapy service. So if any of you want, come, let's talk.
Awesome. Rachel, you have another person,
Yeah, so I think we actually have a question from our virtual audience that Laura's going to pose.
Yeah, not only do we have amazing people here, we almost have 100 people virtually. So a question we have from this audience is, are there any recommended policies and procedures for organizations to be thinking about to implement and maintain safety when considering AI?
That's a terrific question. The policy and the regulatory environment is one of the most complex ones to be in the middle of right now. With what we're doing with human systems, because state level requirements on what do you do with data, how do you take care of psychophysiological data, could be wearables, because we are looking at wellness from, a sleep and an exercise and just how you are as a person. There's different requirements from state to state. If you have national requirements in the AI regulatory space, they're still wide open. They're not resolved and they're not being settled yet, and they won't be anytime soon. So I'm going to try and put this into these big, broad buckets. And the European Union is in the middle of offering some general policy and regulatory guidelines as well. So there's the things that have to happen at a very big level, which is we aren't really deciding that. We're on the receiving end of it. This is going to be that play out between government regulatory systems and big tech that wants to influence those. And, we can certainly speak into it, but by and large, we're not going to have the ability to really shape that. Now, CALE is an organization that could contribute to it, but me, faculty member, that's a little out of the wheelhouse. It's the more local within my professional community space where I can contribute. So I was involved in setting up the first Learning Analytics conference, and the group that we did, SOLAR, the Society for Learning Analytics Research, was the output. Recently set up a group called GRAIL, the Global Research Alliance for AI in Learning and Education. And in both of those instances, you have a capability to educate your membership around what is the landscape looking like. Can you collect psychophysiological data within one state but not in another? How do you manage that? How do you deal with AWS or Azure or GCP? as providers that allow you to petition off those parts of your data in a meaningful way so you can actually preserve the regulation you're under, but knowing that you're going to need full-time regulatory people just to figure out what that landscape is looking like internationally, nationally, state level, and within your professional communities.
I hear such great optimism and opportunity in Dr. Siemens' comments. If we're involved, we're engaged, and we're part of this change. What an inspiring message to begin this conference. Please join me in thanking Dr. Siemens. Hate that we have to stop. We all hate that we have to stop, but I just heard him say he'll stay and chat with people during breaks. So he gave me that sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to give another round of applause for Ruth and George? It was fantastic. Also want to let you know we've got the coffee break right after this before our first round of workshops gets underway. Just know you heard some stories from various folks, and we will be sharing recorded messages. Thanks. We will be sharing recorded messages from various members of CALE before and after the keynotes and the general sessions. So keep an eye out for those. If you come in early, check out the videos as we're going along. It's a way to celebrate our 50th and all of the people who have been part of that. If you have any questions about navigating the conference, this little red badge, this little red ribbon means that's a staff member. You can go up to a CALE staff member and ask them any questions. And we're going to see you in the exhibit hall, something a little bit different for lunch. So keep that in mind for a networking luncheon. And so that will be in Churchill, BCD. So make sure you make it to the networking luncheon. Make sure you also make it to the happy hour that Inside Track is hosting. And you can pick up your drink tickets at the Inside Track booth, just a little tip, the Inside Track booth at the exhibit hall, and then use those at the Inside Track reception. So that's a handy thing to know. And also just make sure you make a lot of connections there in the Knowledge Hub, because that's going to be an exciting place to be this year, I think. So thank you so much. I will let you all go get more coffee because it's going to be a big week. Now I forgot.
Check. Check 1, 2. Mic check. Check 1, 2.
And it was gorgeous, I tell you. It sure would. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, of course. Yeah. Yes, and what did I do?
Yeah, well, you told me what you did, right?
Yeah.
We lived in Memphis.
Oh, really?
Long time ago. It was 94 to 96.
Oh, wow. What part of Memphis did you stay?
We lived in Cordova.
Yeah, that's where I live.
Really?
I live in the county part because there's a city side
Yeah,
of
that's Cordova
Cordova.
County Park.
I'm in the county part.
Almost up to the freeway. We were just starting to build that huge.
Oh, 64, part of Highway 64 in Houston Levee, because Houston Levee is the adjacent county road. They've really built that whole area up so much now.
I worked for international.
You know that there are like 450 jobs just in Memphis alone are being given papers. I hated that because
Definitely. I haven't worked for them for a long time, but we went through that.
I've never heard it be like this. I heard them say that another company was trying to buy it out, and that is a huge. That's going to be a huge loss. Yes, because where they are on Poplar Avenue alone in Memphis, that's going to be a big hit.
They have 3 buildings. We built when I was there. 3 buildings. But I think that's been.
And look, they are a big partner. They have a lot of intern students coming. They have a partnership with the University of Memphis. A lot of students have gotten hired by them. I know people have been there for years. And to really think it's like thinking of Memphis without FedEx. That's gonna be a big hit. 450 right before the holidays. I think they're leaving before the middle. I promise you I will. You know how people don't, they know I have to be at the front of the class. I like being at the front of the class because that way I can hear. And then I'm so short, I don't have to worry about seeing over anybody's neck. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lois Shelley. I'm so happy to have you all as a part of this session. Before I begin to introduce this wonderful esteemed presenter, I want to encourage each one of you that you are more than welcome to move to the front of the room so that you can be engaged. I also want to let you know that you are able to take evaluations of the sessions through the app by going on through the app, and you'll be able to do that on your tablets or your computers or your mobile phones. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kent Blumberg. Dr. Kent Blumberg has been a distinguished faculty member at the University of Phoenix since 2008. With a background in pulp and paper manufacturing across 3 continents, he transitioned into academia after 3 decades, bringing rich experience to his MBA courses in management and human resources. Dr. Blumberg, global perspective and deep commitment to organizational development make him truly an exceptional educator and leader. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kent Blumberg to the stage.
Thank you, Lois. You can come closer. You really can. I'm not passing the plate. I'm not running for anything, so I won't ask for donations. All right. I'm going to just start with a quick sort of question. How many of you are educators or learning providers? 1, 2, 3, okay, 4 or so, 5. And how about employers? 1. And what's everybody else do here? Work for Kale. Cool. Good. Anybody else? Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is first what our Career Institute has found in what we call our Career Optimism Index, which is about the gap between employer perceptions of the skills their employees have and what's available, and what employees think they need and what they think is available in terms of upskilling. Second, then I want to talk about a collaboration we've had with Manpower Group for some years now to try and close that gap. And then I want to use the rest of the time to help you work through how you might create partnerships like the one we have with Manpower with your counterparts, either in education, learning providers or employers or sort of other third parties like with Kale. Let's start with a quick little bit of networking. So if you'd find somebody to pair up with, and what I'd like to have you find out in a minute is who that person is, where they're from, what their day job is, and one goal they have for this conference over the next few days. I'll give you a minute and then get some feedback from you on that, and we'll move on. the title. Oh, thank you. And now we're back on audio and we weren't. Okay, thanks, Lois. That table back there. What? So look at it, how, maybe more about how to look at our inside talent and not forget them, not overlook them, which is a key piece of what we're going to talk about. So very cool. Thank you. That table. Wow, Provost from Vancouver. That's so cool. Beautiful city too. Thank you. This table. So new to prior learning on the educator side and trying to pick up everything you can from all the sessions, right? Cool. Anybody else? What did you all? I'm trying not to say guys. That's like such a loaded gender-based word, right? What did you all come up with? We didn't. That's cool. Good. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. We have for 4 or 5 years now, we've had the career, what we call the University of Phoenix Career Institute, which we created to address broad, persistent, and systemic barriers to career advancement through research-based solutions and impactful partnerships that break down the barriers Americans face in their careers. And for 4 years, we've been doing a survey that we call the Career Optimism Index. This year, we do the survey, it starts in mid-December, runs through mid-January, and then it takes 3 or 4 months to sort of crunch the numbers. So we published this in late spring. This year's survey got data from 5,000 workers and 501 employer reps. And those employer reps were people who reported that they played either influential or critical roles in hiring and workplace decisions. And what we found in that survey was that a fifth of workers were dissatisfied with their current jobs. 42% of them feared job loss due to economic downturns or things like Lois and I were talking about. Lois lives and works in Memphis. International paper just announced 450 jobs being eliminated in December. So lots of fear across our 5,000 employees. And 42% were saying that they can afford less than they could 2 years ago. And they said also they want career growth. They want opportunities to acquire skills. But a third of them feel that they're not recognized by their employers. So I think that table you mentioned about how do we not forget our internal talent, your internal talent is saying, we don't think, at least a third of them are saying, we don't think our bosses know that we're here. 62% of employers reported that they were making fewer hires last December, this January. And yet, over half of them were struggling to attract new talent. They couldn't find talent that was qualified, that had the skills they were looking for externally. They reported, about 51% reported it was taking them more than a month to fill typical empty positions in their company at that time. The top challenge in terms of filling those jobs was qualifications, skills, if you will. More than half of employers at the time said our employees are easily replaceable. You get that. The same people who said we can't fill jobs also said our employees are easily replaceable. And interestingly, 53% of workers in that survey said the same thing. I feel like I'd be easy to replace for my company. Workers said, I know what I need to be more valuable to my company. I know what I need to have more career security, and that is I've got to learn new skills just to stay even, if not to get ahead in my career. And 2/3 said the amount of money the amount of the amount of time and money that a company is willing to invest in reskilling or upskilling is something that I consider when I look at new opportunities and whether to move to a different company. So workers said, I need skills. Half of them said, I need skills development. Half of them said, I need to see my career path going forward. I need to know how to get ahead. Almost half said, I need mentorship. Employers said, we have tons of opportunities that we offer people for internal mobility. 62% of employers said that we have tons of opportunity for internal mobility. 36% of workers said there's tons of opportunity here for internal mobility. So a huge gap, right, between what employers think they have in terms of you can move ahead in our company and what employees think in terms of their ability to move ahead. 90% of employers said we have great opportunities for career development. 69% of employees said, yep, we have great opportunities for career development. So again, a gap. It could be based on additional data that the problem is not that the programs don't exist, that the career paths don't exist. It's about communication, about employees learning what's out there. So one of the things we offer employers are shared education savings, which is discounts for their employees. And when we talk to employees, most of them don't know their company offers any sort of tuition reimbursement, for example, right? So it's there. Companies are investing in, employees don't know. Because when employees knew, when they said, yeah, I know we've got lots of opportunities in our company, they also said that 82% of those employees said, I'm satisfied with the opportunities for internal mobility in my company. 86% said, I'm satisfied with the conversations I have with my manager about my career path. And 88% said, I'm satisfied that upper management knows I'm here. So when when the employees had information about their opportunities to grow and learn and develop with their company, they also were more likely to believe that their company believed in them, in a sense. So what we're looking at is employers are overlooking the potential within their existing workforce, and workers feel overlooked. And workers could be acquiring skills because many companies offer them different ways to acquire those skills, but they don't know how to do that. So that's what we call the great talent stagnation. And we think, based on what we heard from employees and employers, that there are three things employers can do. And we're going to talk about one of those in more detail. Three things employers can do to help here. And then the fourth thing on this line is really an outcome. So offering flexible working arrangements, flexible learning arrangements will increase worker productivity and mental well-being and probably help workers upskill. Second is dramatically increasing the visibility that workers have into all the different ways they can gain skills and move forward. So what do career paths look like? How do I network with people outside my own department and beyond just my current boss? How do I find mentors inside and outside this organization that will help me gain the skills I need? And not AI mentors, by the way, but people mentors in this case. And then showing workers how employers are investing in them, in their learning, whether it be through shared education savings, apprenticeships, professional development opportunities, credit for prior learning that helps them build, not only certify their skills, if you will, but build toward degrees. There's reason for employers to invest in all of this, and that is based on statistical analysis we did, where we looked at groups of workers who were not happy and felt they had no opportunities versus those who were happier, the ones who scored that 82% on, yeah, I know I've got opportunities in my company, recognizes that. We're able to show that employers who had invested in boosting career optimism among workers were saving about $8,000 per year per employee. And we got that by finding that productivity of employees in those organizations was higher, to the tune of about $6,500 a year per employee. And turnover was lower. So per employee, they were saving $900 some per year because they had lower turnover. And interestingly, healthcare costs were lower in those organizations by $616 per year. So $8,000 per year, from what we could tell, mainly correlated to companies doing a much better job of providing upskilling resources, but then educating their employees about what opportunities they have. So that's really what we're going to spend the rest of our time together. And we're first going to talk, before we move into a little workshopping, about a collaboration we've had with the Manpower Group for some years now. We didn't start out as organized as it looks like if you look at the sample organization sheet that I put up on our website. But here's what happened. So the Manpower Group was founded in 1948. It's the third largest staffing firm in the world. They're really good at matching worker skills to the demands of roles because that's what they do. They find workers and they place workers at other employers, right? They're really good at that. They also are really good at experiential learning. They look at when they place somebody in a role, they want that person not only be able to handle that role so that Manpower gets paid, but they also want that person to learn new skills as part of doing that role. They say their approach emphasizes inclusion, innovation, and the belief that meaningful work has the power to transform lives and societies. They're not expert at growing worker skills beyond providing those experiences. They've done similar work, and their talent shortage study last year found that a record 75% of U.S. companies were reporting finding the difficulty finding the talent they need. So similar numbers, right? Companies need skills and they're not finding it, and they probably don't even realize that they're inside the door. So some 5 or so years ago, they came to us looking for collaborative help on finding ways to upskill workers. So preparing associates to supervise in call center, for example. And we ended up collaborating on something that Manpower calls My Path. So we did a couple of things. First, we worked with them, those of us in Workforce Solutions, the folks in our colleges, the academic folks, and folks in operations, like in the enrollment and the evaluation parts of the world, like where Nathan works. We collaborated with them to build certificate programs. So for example, certificates in call center supervision as one example. We didn't take existing courses from University of Phoenix. We designed, with the help of Manpower, faculty in our colleges, and the Percipio platform, we designed 6-week online courses that were a combination of virtual asynchronous learning and instructor-led learning. The instructors primarily provided video introductions, little mini videos about topics that they were learning from, and also stayed in touch with students to keep them on track. So they were doing a little bit of sort of retention, if you will. At the end of each course, students would earn 1 college credit that could apply to specific degrees at the University of Phoenix, and a certificate. The second part of My Path, so we got these special courses that we collaborated on and continue to collaborate on. The second part of My Path then was Manpower decided to fully fund specific sets of undergraduate degrees. So business, healthcare, technology, criminal justice, human services, communications, and sciences at University of Phoenix. So those 2 things they put together. So far, so this has been about 5 years, 2,500 associates have completed the courses in this program. Accounts, receivable or payable, contact center, customer service, leadership, contact center team leadership, help desk, human resources, project management, and warehouse production leadership. And Manpower is continuing to scale up, and we're continuing to add these little 6-week 1-credit courses as they find new needs and bring those to us. So their director of MyPath has said, our MyPath program was built to help our associates reach for new and meaningful opportunities in their career path, in their career progression. Our team worked closely with University of Phoenix to create this talent development solution. We're pleased to share about how this has defined a successful pathway for associates to gain new skills. And one of their employees said, they want you to succeed. They don't want you to sit still. They want you to learn more. They give you more opportunities to where you don't have to stay in this job. You can move over here and be this. And when our students are surveyed at the end of the course, they say that it has given them confidence in their ability to step into a new role. They report that what they've learned is of value. So that's the collaboration that I wanted to seed this with, and then think about how to help you think about building or enlarging academic or business collaborations that you have or want to have or wish you had. Before we kind of dive into the worksheet, let me just stop here and see what questions you might have about what we've talked about so far. I was stunningly brilliant or stunningly boring, one of the two, right? So let me just ask in this room, how many of you are engaged in any sort of collaboration with either as a learning provider with an employer or a third party, or as an employer with a learning provider? So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
So working with the state of California policymakers and being able to drive that initiative to how would I say, try to solve it.
So in California, trying to solve the teacher shortage in particular, right? So, and you're both with National University? Cool, very cool. So software-driven solution. There's a software provider, the university, National University, and the state of California, in effect. California Teachers Commission. I'm saying all this so that any streamers can see us, right? And building, sort of collaboratively building a solution to increase the number of teachers that are ready to be in the classroom, right? Very cool. Very cool. What's the name of your institution? Valencia College. So Valencia College in Osceola School District, right? Again, Valencia College is working with the school district to decrease the shortage of teachers, right? You have a teacher certification program on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Future Teachers Program, sorry. So Future Teacher Program, soon to be a bachelor's program. And the program runs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because Monday, Friday are the big substitute days. So your students can substitute when they're needed, right? Very cool. Anybody else? Yeah. Nice. So you're National University, right? Okay. So partnering with health system in Canada to bring LPNs in. They get credit for prior learning basically from their LPN learning, right? and their work, good. And they end up with an RN and they're paid full-time while they're doing it. They work half-time, class half-time. Very cool. Thank you. Any others? Yes.
So it's energy providers who are looking to upskill their current workers. So we work with education providers. We get people from the employers to review the curriculum. So we can make sure that the curriculum stays current for electrical workers and clear power plant workers. And then we also work with the companies to help them make sure their employees are taking advantage of tuition assistance and reimbursement. Like you said, some people just don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
Help them grow their usage of the tuition assistance programs.
So what's the name of the coalition again? It's the Energy. EPCE, Energy Providers Coalition for Education. Thank you. Which actually is then it's sort of there are 3+ kinds of parties, right? Kale is kind of in the center of it, right? The convener. You have employers in the energy sector on one hand and educators, learning providers on the other hand, right? And you bring them all together to upskill people in that industry. Very cool. Okay. So I put 2 documents up on the website for this, well, 3 actually, the slides, a blank employer educator collaboration worksheet, and then and for those of you who are here, if you want a hard copy, I have hard copies of this too. An example, basically, we weren't smart enough to do it this way when we started in 2017. I'm going to be honest. But as we were thinking about this conference, we said, how would we have thought about the collaboration with Manpower if we had thought about it in a really structured way to get started? So we created a collaboration worksheet for both groups to think about what do we bring apart, what do we need. So if we go to the employer version of this sample, we started by asking, and I'm going to take this off. We could probably cut that off because it's not adding anything. I think that's possible. So we started with saying, if we were Manpower when we started this a few years back, what would we be bringing to a collaboration with an educator or a learning provider? And what somebody like Manpower brought is a pretty deep knowledge of their own workers, their staff, right? And the skills that their staff had, and also the skills their staff didn't have that they needed to be useful not only in today's jobs they're putting in, but for future jobs. They also were experts in providing experience. They knew experiential learning. They knew how to put somebody in a role that stretched them just enough so they would learn without breaking them. They wanted, when we think about what did they need then from an educator to be a good partner? And this is probably a little salesy because we did this, not them. So we probably put in a few bullet points about what we think is cool for us. But if you think about what would somebody like Manpower need, one, they do need adaptability and flexibility. Just saying, hey, here's a degree, just give everybody a business degree is not going to work for most employers, for most roles, right? It's about, we need specific skills. And there's some of them in your degree, but there's also stuff that folks don't need. Obviously, they need the educator, the educational institution or learning provider needs to understand adult learners. We're all here, so we get that. Not 18-year-olds who are straight out of high school. We wanted somebody who's reputable and also somebody who's quite passionate about skills, which we definitely are. I think most of the people actually in this building right now probably are pretty passionate today about skills. And they might have listed any number of potential educators to work with. Since we did this, we had us at the top, but we also knew that they were looking at Coursera, Kaplan, ASU Online, and some other providers at the time. And their goal for collaborating with us, and these we know because they shared with us, They told us their mission statement is to connect individuals to work opportunities that allow them to grow their skills, gain valuable experience, and build careers. And they were committed to empowering those individuals. And they were looking for organizations, institutions that would help them make that happen. Then we asked, we think about who they brought to the team. Senior leadership at the employer was definitely involved. Marketing and internal communications and PR were involved from the start because they understood this whole communication gap, even back then, that employees don't know what's out there if we don't figure out how to get to them. And then recruiters for them, for Manpower, recruiters were the frontline workers, if you will, the people who were talking every day to new Manpower hires, to candidates. And they had the most direct exposure to people. They had the most opportunity to let those people know about what career path potential there might be with Manpower. So that's what an organization might be thinking of. So what do you think for those of you who are not educational institutions, what would you be looking for, or have you looked for, in terms of learning providers and what they need to bring to the party? Or what could be useful for you? I know you got your software, but what in you can maybe also report what did the state need to see? What did schools need to see in terms of providers for potentially for your partnership, your collaboration?
Leveraging the resources that we have. And I'll give an example. So every college and university is facing shortages today, right? Student enrollment. But you have people that are long-term unemployed. And probably schools have never thought, hey, let me work with the Department of Unemployment. Anybody that's a year and a half unemployed, let me send them a letter. Right? Because those are ready-made students for you, people who want to upskill their reskill. I mean, that's a tactic that I use in my business in the IT world, because finding IT resources is very expensive and also very, how would I say, hard to find because they move around quite a bit. So I would go to the Department of Unemployment, I would look at people who were long-term unemployed. If they had prior skill sets, I would call them and see if they wanted to come in for 6 months. They could shadow. After 6 months, if they stuck with the program, I would hire full time. So basically, I think that a lot of times thinking out of the box and not saying that this is the way we've always done it is what's critical to be successful today.
So thinking outside the box, going to people you haven't gone to in the past, for employees, for skills, or for people who need skills, right? And in your case, in the IT world, going to the unemployment office, basically, right? And finding unemployed workers who might fit the bill or could be trained to fit the bill in the IT world made a lot of sense. So it's asking questions of people you haven't asked those questions before. Nice. Wow. Persistence, and that's important, because even whether you're trying to get an unemployed IT worker to return your call, like in your case, or whether you're trying to get somebody at a learning provider or an employer return your call and even start the conversation, we're all busy. And without that persistence and maybe a reason to pick up that email or that phone and have a conversation, it is not going to happen. Right. What else would you look, if you're an employer, what else would you be looking for? Yes.
Mostly in manufacturing, that's what they like the skilled trades. So I had a trucking company, for example.
an apprenticeship program, but they only wanted their people to sit in class for so many hours, and we just couldn't get it done. We had to go outside to another training provider that was like an hour away that was willing to work, as opposed to the community college that was in our area for that company. They just refused to do that because this is how many hours they had to sit in class. And, you know, they were already going to be driving, you know, they didn't need that many hours in the classroom. And we had to go outside of that. It's just really hard to get them to customize programs.
Such a great point. So the importance of the learning provider, whether that's an educational institution or other learning provider, being willing to be flexible in order to meet the upskilling needs that an organization has, right? And that's hard. So for universities, accredited universities, we easily get stuck into, no, you have to have 15 hours, 45 hours of time in the seat or whatever for us to be able to award you with 3 credit hours for college. It takes breaking that mindset and thinking about, all right, if we want to do something that's going to help people upskill, maybe it isn't going to be in an accredited degree necessarily, right? Or we can get it to a degree like what we've done with Manpower, where we've articulated, you know, this training experience over to one credit in a particular area of one of the colleges. But it takes work. It's not just off the shelf. We have, I don't know, maybe 300 or 400 courses that we could pull off the shelf, but very few of them are going to exactly meet an employer needs, particularly in something like what we did with Manpower. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be customized for adult learners. And it has to, the other thing, and I mentioned that we had faculty engaged in this, the courses were mostly online, but we had video from faculty and we had faculty reaching out and touching students, you know, electronically or by phone or by video to make sure they were staying engaged and to make sure they weren't sort of falling through the cracks, right? And that's we heard in the interview just a few minutes ago in the keynote that as AI grows, what the shortage becomes really in the personal touch, right? And that's needed perhaps, I think, more in adult upskilling even than it is in when you're teaching 18-year-olds in a freshman class in this traditional university setting. Does that make sense? Any other sort of employer thoughts on this about what you'd be looking for in an institution? I'll go away. Come on. It's good.
So if you ever have a large employer in an area, they want to upskill a language skill, right? You say, hey, during your lunch hour, we're going to serve you lunch, but you're going to be with this professor during your lunch hour, and you provide that skill. We're going to do that 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You can find a large employer and say, hey, you know what, we have room in our problem for 30 students. Right, and that way you're able to now engage, and those become, you know, eventually those become future students as well, so long term. But it's a different mode of engagement.
So institutions looking at the idea of on-site, on employer site, on-site sort of pop-up upskilling opportunities. Absolutely. Nice. So if you're now, let's switch brains a minute and look at the educator version of this example. And we'll try to ignore the salesy stuff. So what did we bring to this partnership? One, we understand skills in the sense of classroom skills development and skills assessment in particular, as most universities do. We know about how to teach adults and how to assess what adults have learned. And we had a lot of pretty cool technology, I guess I'd say, we brought to the party. We were looking for the kind of work we did with Manpower and that we're working to do with other employers. what works for us is best is a national workforce. So, unlike many universities where we have maybe 3 classrooms in Phoenix and everything else is virtual. So what works really well for us is somebody who has people all over the country. We need to find partners who need the kind of skills we can help with. And we needed to find a central point of contact. In this case, the quote I had from Nemo was the central point of contact for us. We needed to find a central point of contact in an employer. And that's probably the hardest thing, I think, for educators to figure out is who should we go talk to at that big company or that big company? How do we find our way to somebody who can actually be the champion of this collaboration internally? So what would you look like if those of you who are educators in this room, what would you be looking for in a collaboration partner for something like this that we're talking about? Nathan.
Sure that students that he wants.
So the employer has to have a need that is enough scale that it will make sense for you as an institution. And that's going to be different for every institution, right? And for every geography too. Good. So that's one. And not only scale, but it's got to be a need you can meet. So if we were to work with an employer in the energy business, we have very few skills in energy other than sort of basic business stuff, but we would not be able to train people on how to tune up a huge multi-megawatt generator, for example, right? Good. Any other, what would you look for at Valencia? So it has to be right scale, right? It could be too many, I think is your point. Yeah. Scale of the need and scale of your ability to serve has to match, right? Yeah. And it's sort of, there's a geographical thing about need too. So we're national, but we're virtually national. We don't have any physical location anywhere right now except Phoenix. So if we were working with a huge employer in Chicago who wanted us to do something in person in Chicago, it wouldn't work for us, right? What else would you look for in collaborators? So look for the employer who wants to think out of the box too. How do we find, so both on the educator and employer and sort of third party side, if you the convener side, it's important that we find organizations that, or chunks of organizations that want to think outside the box. How do we find them? You talk to them, you propose ideas and see what happens. You maybe watch on LinkedIn who's writing about. So I follow lots of I have 50 employers in my sort of book of business. I follow all of them and look who's writing about stuff, right? Who's sort of thought leading in that area, and maybe you're going to want to partner with them. So before a company comes into your area, you're working with the workforce development partners, the economic development partners to figure out what their needs might be. And nice. So doing your pre-work, staying ahead of things, knowing that a company started to locate in, right? So again, you have to have your fingers out. And you have to be watching a lot of different things and see the little spark that says, oh, we should find out about that. So top level leaders are always looking for that. Nice. So I know we only have a couple of minutes. I'm just interested in what you're taking away, what you might do differently next week because of our 40 minutes or so together. Pop-up idea. You're thinking pop-up, yeah. So really seconding the idea of pop-up experiences that give them a little micro skill maybe, but also give them experience that might turn them into students for you later. Nice. And it injects more of that human experience. Nice. Anybody else?
I think that's been a lot. We have a hidden workforce. And that hidden workforce is professional. But we don't view them as professional because we as educators are very, so if somebody has a degree from a university in South America, we don't validate that degree. That person could have worked in that field 15 years, but he's here driving a Uber. And what I tell employers is hey, you might have a language barrier. He's a person. If you have a teacher come in during lunch hours and you say, hey, let's first teach him all the language skills that he needs to communicate within this area. Let's say, it's power generation. He knows PLCs, he knows controllers, right? But the only thing he's lacking is, hey, how do I communicate what I know in that language? They could learn that in a week or two. Yesterday, I visited a manufacturing site across the Page County Airport. And the person, he hired this person, he goes, Art, I need help because he knows what he's doing, but he can't tell me what he's doing. So I went in and spent 3 hours with this person, basically helping them how to say PLC in English and how to say suction, I don't have enough vacuum, or just little things like that. But the guy's extremely smart. He was a controls engineer in Venezuela, right? And he recognized the person's smart, but all he needs is a few key words that he can communicate to his boss and say, hey, this is why you're not working and this is what I need to purchase. So just little things like that make a huge difference. And employees are willing to pay for that.
Language, language and sort of workplace culture are two things that can stand in the way of actually applying skills people already have. One, I think, example that stands out for me is people who have deep experience in the military coming out into the working world. I worked with a fellow, we were doing mock interviews. I used to do this when I was in Colorado, mock interviews for people exiting the military. And one of the guys I was talking with had moved battalions 3 times to the Middle East and back. Was trying to get a logistics job. But whenever he interviewed and talked about moving battalions, he was talking in military speak that people who own trucking companies, logistics company, didn't understand. But when he backed up and started using business language to talk about what it took to move battalions thousands of miles back and forth 3 times, that's logistics. And then the last language story, and then I'll let Lois close us out. The last language story, I worked for a year and a half running a business in Thailand. There were 24 Thais, or 424 Thais and 1 me, and 8 of them spoke English, but not very well. Until I was a totally ineffectual leader until I learned the language. I knew what needed to happen, but I couldn't put it in language. I couldn't actually hear what people were saying back to me either. So the importance of language, whether it's military to civilian or some foreign language to English, critical. And I appreciate your time. Lois, I'm going to give it back to you.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who can say that this was very informative. Once again, let's just thank Dr. Blumberg for his wonderful presentation. And I just want to remind each of you that you can go through the app to give an evaluation on your sessions via your tablet, your phones or your computers. Thank you all again for coming.